Hi, I'm Rolf Perelius with Shooter's Paradise. I'm making a video for Facebook here. It's titled, You're Not a Badass, which I know is likely to stir up some strong feelings there. So I'd like to ask you to please try to look at this with an open mind and try to set aside some of the presuppositions and predilections you might have. I think this is a very important topic that we need to look at critically. So we like to tell ourselves that we're ready for anything, and by golly, I'm all set to go. And so and so achieved a little something, and we like to say, "Man, you're a badass, and you're ready, and you're prepared, and no one's gonna mess with you." Uh, this is self-certification, and it can be a real problem. So we need to have objective standards to decide, are we really ready? And there are some objective standards out there to evaluate ourselves with, to see, do we really have what it takes to protect ourselves in a self-defense type scenario? Uh, this is a very important thing. We need to know, are we ready? And self-certification in a bubble is not a good thing. It's definitely not a good thing. So I got a couple questions for you. I would ask you to think about this and look at it objectively as you're able to. And by the way, I know that the people who aren't ready to hear this can't really get it, and that's okay, that's fine. This is for the people who are at a point where they really can look at this objectively. So the first question is, when was the last time you made someone else bleed? Not accidentally, not an accidental thing, but really, honestly, when was the last time I hurt someone to the point where they bled? By the way, I hurt myself to the point of bleeding all the time accidentally. So, that's not a big thing. But when was the last time I did that intentionally to someone else? It's been a while for me. That's not something I do on a routine basis. How about this one? When was the last time the cops were called on you because you were a violent problem? I'm not saying that you shot somebody or something like that, but people around were concerned and scared that you were going to be a violent problem, or you were a violent problem, and therefore the cops were called on you. When was the last time that happened? If it's been a long, long time, you may need to look objectively at whether or not you really are prepared to use violence in self-defense. I would mention also that there's this saying that people like to throw around, which is quite criminal in my opinion, that violence never solved anything. Well, that's just plain straight up a lie, because violence solved a lot of things. You remember World War One, World War Two, where we had a big problem and violence is what was required to solve it? Yeah, what about the police officer that came and took care of that problem? There was a big problem, law enforcement showed up, and they solved the problem by using violence. Violence fixes a lot of things. Yeah, so this idea that violence never solved anything, that's just straight up wrong. It's just a lie. So we need to understand, we need to be ready. And we're not doing ourselves or anyone else any favors by pretending, by self-certifying, without looking at objective standards. Let me ask you this. Here's another one. Have you ever been to a talent show where somebody got up and did something that was painfully terrible? Oh my goodness, it just hurts so bad to watch them up there on stage, right? Well, how did that happen? Well, very likely they self-certified themselves that they had talent and they could do this and it would be received well by the audience. Perhaps their circle of friends and family told them, hey, you've got it, go do it, you're going to be great. And they knew that they weren't going to be great, and they were just encouraging out of this, this self-certification, and hey, we all like you, and so we're going to tell you you're great at something when you're truthfully not. That's pretty painful. Think of the consequences of you performing in a talent show, thinking you were great when you weren't. I mean, we see this stuff portrayed in the movies and all. It happens in real life. Well, that's not a good outcome. That's not an outcome I want. And on a lighter note, that's the outcome we're looking at if we self-certify our ability to protect ourselves. It's not really great. And of course, there's always the argument that just because I don't do that, just because I have not recently made somebody bleed, or just because the cops haven't been called on me because I was a problem, this doesn't mean that I can't do it. This doesn't mean I'm not capable of using violence in self-defense. And I would say for 99% of you, yes, it does. But just in case you're that 1 out of 100 who it doesn't mean that, I would recommend to you be sure that you've objectively checked this and you're not self-certifying by testing yourself. Rory Miller has a little test, and it doesn't require that you're going to do something and end up in jail over. It's a pretty simple thing to do, and the issue of it is if you can't do this, there's no way in the world you can use violence in self-defense. And what is it? Well, quite simply, when you're out in public around people that you don't know, go up to somebody and tell them you hate them. Tell them they're a horrible person, that you wish they'd never been born. Then turn around and walk off. If you can't tell somebody that you hate them and you wish they hadn't been born, how are you going to use deadly force against somebody? How are you going to use force against somebody? How are you going to stand up for yourself? This is a kind of a prerequisite to being able to do these things. A badass can do these things. A badass will be able to go up to somebody and say these things. I don't want to do that because maybe I could create a confrontation. Well, you know just as well as I do who the dangerous people are. We know instinctively when we see somebody, that's a person I need to stay away from. That's a dangerous person. Don't pick a dangerous person. That's not hard. Because if you don't pick a dangerous person, you're not going to have a problem with this. And if you were concerned that you would horribly affect somebody's psyche, which I do not believe that would be the case, but if you were worried about that, you could go up to somebody and say, you're a horrible person. I hate you. I wish you'd never been born. And then, once you've said that, and they have this incredibly shocked look on their face, you can then say, wait a minute, are you Joe? Oh my goodness, I got you confused with somebody else. I'm sorry. And then turn around and leave. And that will fix any potential problem that you've created. But you will have done the test. You will have seen if it's in you to be able to do this. This is critically important. That's an objective standard. So we're not just self-certifying ourselves. Am I actually willing to do that? Because if I can't bring myself to do that, how am I going to bring myself to stand up for myself and assert myself and maybe use force to protect me and my family? This is a real serious thing. So you can do this. You can become able. If you find you do the test and you find that you can't do it, you can become able. Absolutely. On our Patreon page, we've got a video that goes deep into this. It gets quite intense and deep in the understanding of this. And there's a simple way to be able to do this. It's all laid out on our Patreon page. Simply, the easy short version is open mind, being willing to do the work, and then actually practicing skills. And I strongly recommend that you get some training from somebody who's laid this stuff out and understands a bit of it. The gold standard in the country as of right now, in my mind, is Craig Douglas with his ECQC class. So if you are more interested in this and interested in digging into it, and if you perhaps like to disprove some of what I'm saying, go to the Patreon page and watch the video, and then you have all the information and can make an educated decision yourself. I think this is probably the most important video that I've made to date. So I strongly recommend you go to Shooter's Paradise on Patreon, I'll put a link in the comments for this video. It's $10, so you can join for a month and watch all the videos for $10, and then leave the page, unsubscribe. And so it costs you $10. I think it's worthwhile. I think it would be worth it. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching. Have a great day. Talk to you next time.